What's up guys, and welcome to the channel. My name is Priscilla, and in this video I am going to be showing you how to draft a basic bodice block. So a basic bodice block is something that you could end up making tops, dresses, jackets and several other designs from, because it covers the top half of your body. So if you like to see how I make this pattern, keep watching. It's a highly requested video, so make sure you stay until the end to learn the whole process of making a bodice pattern. So without further ado, let's jump straight into this tutorial because I'm excited to share it with you guys. We'll need the following tools for this pattern tutorial. I got my usual suspects, my set square and pattern master, which are really useful when I have to draw those integral lines, whether they are curved or straight lines. I also got some tape measure to take down the measurement I'll be needing. I got pencil, pen, marker and eraser, as well as pattern paper. So you'll be needing the following measurements for this tutorial. You would need to take your upper bust, your bust line, your waist and your hip line. These measurements are like really crucial and is what would make the project unique to you. So I've cut myself out necessary amount of pattern paper, and I made sure this edge is straight because that is going to be my center front point. So the first thing we'll be doing is we're going to mark 10 inches down from that top edge, and this will become my bust line, and we're going to take the tape down and mark 6 inches down, which will become my waistline. And from that 6 inches point, we are going to mark 8 inches downwards, which is going to become the hip line of this pattern. So as you can see, I have my 3 first points, which is my bust line, my waistline and my hip line. So the next thing we'll be doing is to draw our horizontal dimensions, and our horizontal dimensions are those measurements we took earlier on, which is the bust line, the waist and the hip. But because this pattern is on a fold, we're going to divide the measurements by 4. So starting with my bust, which is 36, I'm going to divide that by 4, which would end up being 9, and I'm going to mark that on this point here. I'm going to repeat the same steps for the waist, but the waist we're going to add 1 inch because of the dart that we're going to be adding later on. So my waist is 30 divided by 4, 7.5, and I'll add 1 to make that 8.5 before marking it onto the pattern here. We'll be repeating the same step for the hip line. My hips is 39, divide that by 4 is about 10 inches, and I'm just going to mark that before going ahead to drawing the horizontal lines. So I'm just drawing in the line using a marker pen so you can really see clearly what I'm doing. I'm going to draw in the bust line, the waistline and the hip line for this basic bodice pattern. So I'm just going into writing what each line is so I don't get confused at any point. And I'm going to connect the edges of this line. So that's connecting the bust to the waist and then connecting the waist to the hip line. So after connecting it like this, I just went in again with my pattern master to smoothing out that edge, because our bodies are not really edgy like that, it's curved. So I just added a curve around the waist and around the hip using my pattern master. So when that's all done, the next thing we'll be doing is to create the front shoulder and neckline. And the first thing to do here is to mark 3 inches in from your center front sort of edge, and that is going to be the beginning of the neckline. But for the shoulder, it is 5 inches wide, and we're going to mark it from that 3 inches point. But because our shoulder is not straight and is sort of like a curve or a slant, we're going to drop the shoulder point by 1 inches before connecting it to our 3 inches point of the neckline. Using the straight side of my pattern master, I'm going to draw in the line using my marker pen so it's obvious and very clear. And after doing that, I'm going to draw in the neckline. So I'm just doing a simple round neck, but the beauty about a basic bodice is once you have this sort of basic thing done and you want to do any other different shapes in the future, it's easy to customize from this point. So I'm just going to write my center front indications there, and the next thing we're going to think about is your upper chest dimension. So the calculation for this is to divide your bust by 6 and add 1.5 inches. So once you get that done, we're going to mark that from your shoulder line into your pattern towards your bust point. because this will help you to create your arm curve for the front. So once I'm done doing that, I'm just going to draw a straight line from the bust all the way to the shoulder. And after doing that, I am going to draw in my upper chest line from the center front edge to the outer edge of the pattern like this. For ease of movement around the armhole, I'm going to add 1 inch. I added 1.5 while I was working on the pattern, but I realized 1.5 was way too much. But you would need to add 1 inch for ease of movement when you've cut this pattern out or when you plan to use it in the future. So the next thing we're going to do is to join the bust line to the upper chest line. I think at this point I realized, oh, I needed just 1 inch and not 1.5. So once I've made that correction, I'm just going to go in and draw in the lines connecting the upper chest to the bust line. So the next thing you need to do is to find the midpoint of this line here. And once I'm marking that midpoint was about 3.75 roughly, you're going to drop that line, not the whole line, but just that point by 1.5 centimeters. And this is going to become crucial when it's time to draw in the front curve. So we're going to connect the top shoulder to that point and then to your upper chest line. So taking my pattern master, I'm just going to go in and connect the points. So drawing a curved line from the shoulder line to that point that we marked earlier on, down to that upper bust or upper chest point. So doing this, we've created our front arm curve. I'm just marking in a notch to be sure that that is my front, and this would complete sort of that front arm curve of the pattern. So as you can see, we have the bust line done, the waist, the hips, and every basic sort of covered. The next thing we need to consider is our darts. So we're going to create the dart along the waistline here, but to make sure the dart is really precise, you're going to need to measure your bust span, which is your nipple to nipple point. So you can do this by yourself or do this on your mannequin, but it's better to do it on yourself if you're going to be using the pattern for yourself. Mine was approximately 9, and divide that by 2, I got 4.5. So this is going to help you to create your darts when it's time to draw them in. So once you've marked that point, we're going to draw a straight line from the hip all the way to the bust. Remember, we added 1 inch to the waistline. We are going to taking that 1 inch through the dots. So you're going to mark 1/2 inches on both sides of this straight line we drew not too long ago. And once we draw in the dots and sew it later on during production, you've taken in that 1 inch you added to the waistline automatically. So the front dart starts 1 inch below the bust line and ends 2 inches before the hip line. You don't want to take in any excess measurements through the dart. You just want to take in that excess 1 inch that you added around the waist. So I've just gone ahead and I've drawn in my dart shape, which is like a triangle on the top and the bottom half of the waistline. So this is what the front looks like so far. It's more or less done, and it's essentially the same thing for the back bodice block. So as for the back, what we'll need to do is you can either go through and repeat the same steps, or you could just layer another pattern paper underneath your front and cut through both layers. So before you cut through, I'm just going to go ahead and secure the 2 pieces of pattern paper using tape, just arranging and aligning and ensuring that they are both sort of correct and aligned to each other. So using tape to hold both of them down and using a weight, I am going to make sure that they don't move. But before I cut through both panels, I'm going to draw in my back neckline. And the back neckline is 1 inch deep and 3 inches wide. I'm just going in and drawing it in here, and the back arm curve is shallower than the front because the front is always curved to accommodate your movement and your bust in the front of the body, but the back is usually more shallow. So I'm just going in and drawing 2 notches to indicate that that is the back armhole, so I don't get confused when it's time for me to cut the pattern through. So I'm going to take a scissors and cut around the back dimensions so we get the back bodice pattern. So I'm just going to cut through with my scissors, starting from the back neckline through to the shoulders, around the arm curve, down the side, and out through the hips. Because this pattern is a block, there is no need to add seam allowances at this point. It's only if you want to actually cut on fabric from this pattern, you would need to trace onto fresh pattern paper and then add your seam allowances and so on and so forth. So at this point, seam allowances are not really needed since it's just a block. So now that I'm done cutting off the back panel, I'm just marking on necessary points such as the notches, the waistline, the bust point, and then I'm going to go in and cut off the back neckline and the back arm curve from the front piece because we don't need them on the front. We only needed that to help us cut the back piece in one go without having to go through the same process of drawing all these lines again. So once that is done, I'm going to transfer all the lines necessary to the back pattern. I'm going to transfer the waist, the bust, the upper chest, mark my notches, indicate that it's the back, the center back point, everything necessary just to know that that is the back bodice pattern. The difference is the back dart starts 1 inches below the upper chest. It's not 1 inches below the bust point like the front, but 1 inches below the upper chest and ends 2 inches before the hip line. That's the other difference between the front and the back. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. I hope you find it useful. The bodice block is really essential because through it you can draft so many other designs for your own project. If you have any other questions, suggestions, or ideas, please ask them down below. And until next time, have a good morning, afternoon, and evening wherever you are. Bye. Hi to my Insta story. You having a good time? Wow, you've like cleaned your plate.